Your software needs to be compliant to win deals, but you also need your engineers focused on building your product, not pulling SOC 2 evidence. Enter a third option. Make Vanta your first security hire. Vanta uses AI and automation to get you compliant fast, simplify your audit process, and unblock deals, so you can prove to your customers that you take security seriously. Plus, Vanta scales right along with you, backed by support that's there when you need it every step of the way. That's why top startups like Cursor, Linear, and Replit use Vanta to get and stay secure. Don't SOC block your best engineer. Set them free and get compliant fast with Vanta. Get started at Vanta.com.
With CarGurus Discover, you can skip the filters and describe what you're looking for in your own words. Simply type what you want, and CarGurus Discover instantly surfaces real listings that match your exact needs. It's no wonder CarGurus is the #1 most visited car shopping site according to SimilarWeb's estimated traffic data. Buy or sell your next car today with CarGurus at CarGurus.com. Go to CarGurus.com to make sure your big deal is the best deal. That's CarGurus.com. CarGurus.com.
Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Welcome, everybody, to the Hockey Think Tank podcast, brought to you by the Hockey Think Tank community and the hockeythinktank.com, a place for all passionate players, parents, and coaches to go to get a little bit of education and a little bit of inspiration regarding the greatest game on the planet. What an episode we have for you guys here today. It is just the one, Jeffrey Jehu Lavecchio and I, and we are talking about balance. We're talking about the balance in especially youth hockey. And we're going to get some topics here that, I think we're going to bat around, and we're going to talk about the extremes. We're going to talk about meeting in the middle, but these are questions that we get asked all the time from hockey coaches, from hockey parents, from hockey program directors. And we thought it'd be really good to bat it around, especially as the season is nearing here. We are in August, everybody. Can you believe it? I can't believe where time has gone. How is the summer almost over? Absolutely insane. But we got some fun stuff to talk about. Before we do get into that intro, though, let's bring on the talent of the podcast, for one, Jeffrey Jehu Lavecchio. Vex, what's up?
Oh, yeah. Just living, dude. Just living, Summer's almost coming to an end here. Off season's almost coming to an end. So we're getting the boys to all peak and skate a lot more and feel good going into their season. So super fun time here.
There we go. I'm excited for this episode. So you and I, we talked about different things in the hockey world that get some debate on, let's call it. And some people, like I said, are on the extreme of one side or the other. And so there's always a yin and a yang to everything. So here are the topics that we discussed and batted around. So number one, winning versus development, right? What's more important as it relates to the development of the kids, the experience of everybody, all that kind of stuff. Do you put more focus on the winning? Do you put more focus on the development as coaches, as program directors, as parents? And so we batted that one around. The second one is the community model versus the professional AAA model. What are the pros and cons to each? What are the benefits? What are the detractors? What are some conversations that we should be having as it relates to which model is better, how the models are better, how they could potentially work together. So that was number two. Number three is, as a coach, this is one we get all the time. As a coach, how much do you coach with structure and predictability and kind of telling players where they need to be versus letting them play? Having a little bit less structure, letting them figure it out. And again, for all of these, there are extremes. There's some gray. There's a meeting in the middle. There's a meeting in one way a little bit more than the other. Maybe there's different times for both. And so we talk about that. And then lastly, for this one, we talk about hard coaching versus kind of like soft skill coaching. And one way or the other, authoritarian, my way or the highway versus complete players coach, no accountability on the extreme, the other end. And so we had some great debate, great, like just back and forth, I think, between the two of us, where hopefully it gives a lot of people a lot of perspective on these things. And I'll let you take it from there, buddy. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, I love this one, especially the talk about the games played. That's always a favorite of mine. But I think that Toph does a very, very good job, even the last month. But what did you say on our last recording? God, it was so good.
Two things can be true at the same time.
Two things can be true at the same time, and you're going to hear a lot of that on here, and just us trying to help you guys understand what that means for your player, for your team, and for your organization.
I love that, man. I love that. All right, I got a couple updates here. Some life updates. Ooh. And some hockey think tank updates. So the first thing is, I think I'm always very open and vulnerable on this podcast about different things in my life and other things. And what I will say to everybody is that hockey think tank is going to the moon. Okay. And so I actually had a job offer and opportunity that was pretty legit in the hockey world. Would have probably been an awesome opportunity. A lot more pay for sure too. And I turned it down. I turned it down because I so believe in what we're doing with the hockey think tank. I so believe in the mission to making the hockey world a better place. I so believe with what we're doing with all these youth organizations, on the micro level. I so believe in what we're doing with the community that we've built. I so believe in what we're doing in the podcast. And I'm not ready to step away from that. I'm not ready to take a step back from that. And so, dude, it was really cool. I couldn't sleep after I got this offer because I was like, this is a potentially life-changing thing for my family and I, financially and just structurally. As you know, being an entrepreneur, you kill what you eat, and it's, you gotta work, you gotta grind, man. And so it was a very big moment of clarity for me on how much this means to me and how much what I feel like is doing is making an impact in the hockey world. And so I basically pushed all my chips in, man. I pushed all my chips in, not that they haven't been all the way in before, but it was an opportunity to kind of cash out. I don't mean that literally, but go a different direction that would probably make my life a lot easier. But I so believe in what we're doing, man. And so Hockey Think Tank's going to the moon. And it's been really cool to get that clarity.
Let's go.
I don't even think I've told you this, off of this, have I?
Haven't. We're going to have a telephone call after this.
So yeah, I'm really excited about that. And then the other thing too is this Hockey Think Tank community, guys, be on the lookout here next week. It's going to be insane. It's going to be legitimately insane. We are adding so many new features. We are going to make it so much better. And so I can't wait to kind of unveil all the things that we're going to be doing here in the future. And so the community is going to be crazy. So I don't know, just couple updates from your guy here of how just pumped I am for Hockey Think Tank, dude. It's going to be crazy.
Hell yes, man. Absolutely hell yes. And I'm glad because I know how many people you're helping with everything you do, from the podcast to the website, to the outreach, to the organizations you work with. So selfishly for the hockey world, I'm glad you're sticking with Hockey Think Tank and pumping this beast up. Let's go.
Let's go, baby. Let's go to the moon. To the moon. Here we go. And I think this conversation that we just had is going to take us to the moon as well. And so before we do get over to that conversation, though, we do have some people to thank that support us for everything that we've been doing. First, want to thank our title sponsor, icehockeysystems.com, the best website out there for all your coaching education needs. You talk about taking things to the moon. These guys are taking things to the moon too. I was just out there for a full day a couple weeks ago in Buffalo, shooting some content, shooting some video with them, because they got some surprises up their sleeve as well that should be coming out pretty shortly too. So Ice Hockey Systems, it is a website where you have thousands of drills to choose from, to use in your practices, whiteboard explanations from really, really high-level hockey people. You have the ability to go in and draw your drills up, create a library for yourself, or we have partnered with the icehockeysystems.com guys to do an associations platform where you can get this for every single coach in your organization. Build up an organization practice plan library, build up a drill library. It is an absolute no-brainer game changer. So many of the groups that we work with, they have icehockeysystems.com and they absolutely love it. It's so easy to use and there's so much great valuable information on there. So go to icehockeysystems.com today, check out that associations platform and get it for all of your people today.
Want to say a massive thank you to Train Heroic. You guys know Train Heroic is the amazing app and platform that I've used since COVID to train tens of thousands of hockey players. I'm working with NCAA D1 teams, NCAA D3 teams, USHL, NAHL, all the way down to 10-year-old teams that want to have some simple workouts at home for their players. If you are looking for individual workouts or team organization workouts, please reach out to me. This isn't a PDF. This isn't gangster. You got to guess what you want to do. I film very, very intensely and intentionally so that you know exactly how I want every player doing everything when they're on the app doing the workouts with me. It's the reason why so many players have trained with me online versus other trainers out there. It's not an accident. So if you want online training for your team, your org, please reach out to me. We can start a conversation and figure out if it's a fit for you. Thank you to Train Heroic for making all that possible.
Boom, there we go. And thank you to Helios Hockey, one of the best hockey development products out there. It is a sensor that you put in your shoulder pads and gives you real-time data, real-time feedback on your play. And it's big with skating. Skating is such a big part of the game today. So not only is it going to track your stride, but and give you some data and feedback on that, but it's also going to give you skating resources to help you get your stride better. So incredible. Also, kids love what they call the hustle score. So every time you move, that sensor lights up and it can tell you kind of how hard you're working out on the ice, which is really, really cool. But the game changer, guys, is it pairs up with your video and it cuts up your shifts for you directly after the game. So whether you use an iPad, an iPhone, an actual camera, whether you want to use Live Barn or whatever the rinks cameras are, like it syncs up with that. And because it goes whenever you go, you get that video cut up for you. Absolute game changer. We are in the process right now of doing a hockey think tank Helios Hockey Challenge, where I have been challenged to work out every single day and post it on social media with my Helios on. And then we have other people, other players from around the world that are taking a selfie of themselves working out and posting it on social media and tagging me and tagging Helios Hockey. And you have the chance to win some really cool prizes by doing that. So thank you to those guys at Helios Hockey. Unbelievable product, and check it out on my Instagram here today. And then lastly, I want to thank Crossbar. Crossbar, the best website out there for streamlining the operations of your youth hockey club. I know so many different program directors and presidents, even people that we work with, that have made the switch over to Crossbar, and I cannot tell you how happy they are to have done that. So it's what does it? It comes with a sleek, unbelievably easy to use website design. It gives you the ability to schedule things like registration for drop-ins, and even for your entire season. There's a scheduling part to it. There's a communication app to communicate with your families. There's financial tools and reporting. There's facility and rink management, volunteer management. Like, this is a one-stop shop for all of your operations with your youth hockey club. So go to crossbar.org today and check that out. You will be happy. I promise you that you did. And then lastly, thank you to all of our amazing listeners. We love you guys so much. The only thing that we ask for in return is if you can interact with this podcast in any way with your podcast app. So every rating, every review, anytime you download us or you follow us, it just goes a long way on the back end of that algorithm to get us into some more ears. And if you think we're doing a positive for the hockey world, and you think more people should listen to what we say and our amazing guests, then if you could do us a favor and do that, that would be great. Vex, anything to add?
You killed it.
All right, man. So here we go. A really, really, really honest conversation about different aspects, different debates, different back and forths, yin and yangs in youth hockey. So without further ado, here we go with the Tat Man himself, Jeffrey Lavecchio, and myself. Let's go. What's up, everybody? Happy Monday, or if it's not Monday for you, happy whatever day of the week you are listening to this episode. I am pumped for this one, Vex. Let's talk some youth hockey, and let's talk some honest, maybe hard conversation, talk about some stuff in youth hockey. What do you say?
Let's do it. I mean, I also think that we should talk about how old you are today. Toph is 40 today, guys. He got on the pod. He farted. He's basically the crypt keeper. So happy birthday, old balls. Let's get it.
The dust farting out. Yes, that actually happened. 100%.
I'm so young. I have no idea. Young and virile. I have no idea what it's like to be you at this age. But cool, man. Let's go.
By the way, for those of you that don't know, Jeffrey turns 40 in 1 month and 3 days. So eat it, buddy. No, I'm excited for this episode here, and the impetus of this episode. So I read this book a couple years ago. It's from Jocko Willink and Leif Babin, who are both military guys. Jocko Willink's, huge, I guess you can call him influencer now on social media. He's done a lot of great stuff. And he wrote this book called The Dichotomy of Leadership. And it was a really interesting book about the balance of leadership and how going too far one way on things could be bad, going too far the other way on things could be bad, and just finding a way to find some balance in between. So you think about something I'll just read off a few of the names of the chapters, and I think it'll give you a little bit of a perspective on what we're going to kind of go through here. And so one chapter is own it all, but empower others. So doing things all myself versus empowering others. Train hard, but train smart. Be aggressive, but not reckless. Be disciplined, but not rigid. Hold people accountable, but don't hold their hands. So a lot of what he talked about from a leadership perspective is just finding the right way in this, world that we live in of black and white, to find the balance in the gray. If you go so far one way, it's not going to be helpful for anybody. If you go so far the other way, it's not going to be helpful for anybody, and finding that sweet spot in between. And so I think there's a lot of I don't know if debates is the right word, but there's a lot of themes in youth sports and what we'll talk about in youth hockey that relate to this, where it's if you go too far one way, it's not good. If you go too far the other way, same thing, finding that sweet spot. And so I'm interested to hear your perspective on this stuff, and hopefully everybody who's listening will be interested, because I know a lot of people, just from asking questions and giving us feedback and things like that, there's a lot of middle ground to be had in a lot of these different conversations. So thoughts just before we begin?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, it's like anything, you can't only go 100 miles an hour this way or that way. It's easy one probably to understand right now in the world of today with parents listening is politics. Politics, everybody's on TV, they're showing people that are on the very far left or people on the very far right, when it's in reality, most people are somewhere in the middle, and somewhere in the middle is where you're going to find the best results and have the most people be the most happy. Not, okay, we're only going to take our country to the far left, or we're only going to take our country to the far left. Finding that sweet spot where everything works together and you got a little bit of give and take and everything makes sense. And, you're not making yourself crazy doing one thing so hard. You don't feel like you have FOMO, you're missing out on the other thing. I think it's all about the balance.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like the more I get older, which is kind of relevant for today, but the more you realize that so many things in life is on a pendulum. And, you got to sway one way and sway the other way based on life circumstances, expectations, just things that are going on in your life or other people's lives. And you might need a little give here. You might need a little take here. And yeah, you're right. Like the way that we communicate about so many different things, especially in our media, is it's either this way or this way. And if you're not so like 100% this way, you're wrong. And if you're not 100% this way, you're wrong. And like, that's not how life works. There's shades of gray to everything. And there's a need for adaptability and there's a need for change all the time. And so that's what we want to talk about here. We want to have like a really honest conversation about where we're at in youth hockey based on a lot of these different principles. So here, just as maybe an introduction, here are some things that we'll talk about. Development versus winning. Number one. That's what we hear a lot. Development versus winning. Number two, the professional model versus the community model. Like if you go so far one way or so far the other way, that's not what we're looking for. There's got to be a mixture of both. Number three, structure versus letting people play. Like how much structure do you give kids versus how much do you just let them go and let them play in your development of them and in, making them better from a team standpoint. Hard coaching versus not coaching. Hard coaching versus not coaching. I think people think of coaching as like the old school, so far this way, and the new school, so far this way. In reality, you probably need a little bit of both as a coach to get the most out of your players. Games versus practices. Where do you get better? Is it just playing in a million games? Is it not playing very many games and only practicing? That's another one. Specialization versus playing multiple sports. There's a middle to be had there. And so these are like, honestly, guys, these are questions that we get a lot. And a lot of times, even when we do our short shifts episodes and we do our Friday face-off episodes, I'll ask Vex a kind of black and white question, and you'll say, what? Well, it depends.
It depends.
What's the age that we're talking about? What's the situation we're talking about, right? And so that's where like we want to dive into some of these questions that we get a lot. And hopefully we can find a way to kind of meet in the middle in a lot of these. And honestly, some of the inspiration, if that's what you want to call it, of this is we had such a great conversation a few weeks ago with Sean Pauly. Sean Pauly runs an online day academy at a rink. And so we kind of went back and forth about the merits of that versus the merits of kind of like the more community-based hockey. And we got a lot of great feedback from people just saying thank you, because they're trying to, navigate the reality of where hockey is going, but also wanting to stick true to their principles of what they believe in on what there would be best for their kids or their programs. And so, I think I'm excited to have this conversation. I think it's going to go a long way to answering a lot of questions that we get from a lot of different hockey people, whether you're a parent, whether you're a coach, even whether you're a player. And so I'm going to let Vex run with this because he's the smart one on the podcast. My brain's working a little bit slower nowadays now that I'm, on the over 40 club. But man, you ready to rock and roll?
100%. I love this because like Tope said, guys, I mean, every situation's different. It depends. There is no such thing as, for the most part, for black and white answers. It's always going to be, it depends. So excited to dive a little deeper into this. Let's get it.
All right, let's get it. Okay. First thing I want to talk about is winning versus development. Winning versus development. And this is something we hear from parents. This is something we hear from coaches. As a youth hockey coach, your most important job is to make sure that your players get better. But I would also argue that one of your most important jobs is to help your kids develop a compete level, as well. And so there's like this kind of like dichotomy of we got to win versus everybody gets a participation trophy. And so where are you at on this? How can we frame this conversation to help people out there to understand the nuances between teaching kids to learn how to win versus making sure that we're creating conditions where they're developing and it's not win at all costs?
I love it. It's such a good question because I think that this is a hard one for a lot of people to like understand. And sometimes I think that the way that you and I talk about development and like younger ages, like everybody should play and things like that, we don't have enough time to dive deeper into it, but since this episode's all about that, this is great. I mean, number one, first and foremost, you want to teach kids that winning is important. You want to teach kids how to win. You want to teach kids, that you sell out, you do everything you can possibly, you go dive in front of that shot, whatever, you do everything you can to win. But you as the adult, as the smartest person in the room, hopefully as the oldest person in the room, as the coach steering the ship, you're doing that in a way where you're trying to get everyone to play and develop at the younger ages. It's when you're talking to the parents beginning of the season, with the kids not in the room, it's like, look, our goal is to win every game. That is our goal. But our main goal, even above that, is developing every single player on this team to be much better player, prepared for next year, all these things at the end of the year. So we're going to go after trying to win every single game we play with the plan that everyone is playing in every single situation. Every player matters. The worst player on the team, the best player on the team, they're all going to play for the most part pretty evenly. Again, we're going to stratify that by age. I don't know, below 13 maybe. Okay, let's say there's 1 minute left and we're down a goal and it's going to be a 6-on-5. Yeah, I might put out the kids who have been working the hardest. Maybe not necessarily just the best players. Like it's so hard to like walk through these weeds here, but the goal is development first in a way where we are always trying to win. But sometimes we will lose because I'm going to put out that fourth line player towards the end of the game in a game that doesn't matter winning in the middle of the year because I want them to also develop and get experience. Now, I'm coaching that player to do his very best and to try to win. At the same time, I know that he is not the best player for this situation right now, but because they're below 13 or 14, he needs to be in those situations to get better. So that's going to be part of what we're doing. Now, if it's the state championship at the end of the year, yeah, maybe we're gonna shorten the bench the last minute or two of the game if we need to, but through the development path that we raise everyone's play by the end of the year, so we have more chances of playing everybody in that last game.
Yeah, I love it, man. I think when you just kind of piggybacking off what you're saying, I think there's kind of like almost two different conversations in this. One is like playing time, like how you divvy up playing time within your player ranks. And the other one, which I'll maybe detail a little bit more, and that's like how you actually teach your kids to play. And what I mean by that is if you can run a lock or a, 1-2-2 in youth hockey, you're probably going to win more games, because a team that is structured defensively, is it's going to be hard to score against you. And so, but are you creating robots or are you creating hockey players? Robots. And so like there's a time and a place when you get to like midget hockey to be implementing some of those defensive types of structures so they understand it as they get to, junior hockey where it's going to be a requirement that they know those things. But like as a coach, so I'll start that first and I want to get back to your playing time one because I think that's a really important discussion too. But like as coaches, the most important thing that we can do is to teach our kids and put them in situations where they're going to have to read and react. Hockey is a game of read and react. Hockey is a game of problem solving. And even in the game of hockey, there's black and white as it comes to like structure and systems as you get older. But so much of hockey is in the nuance of the gray area and understanding how to play within those systems with good habits and the ability to really think the game and problem solve. And so by systemizing so much of the hockey at the younger of ages, you're creating kids, like you said, Vex, that are robots that can't think the game. They're going to need a coach to tell them what to do at all times, as opposed to being able to figure it out on their own. Now, can you give them guidelines? Yeah, sure. But even one of the things that we talked about a lot at the college level when I was coaching at Cornell was guidelines, not gospel. Guidelines, not gospel, because we felt like when we were like, hey, you have to do X, Y, and Z, all the players would do because they wanted to have approval of their coach and want more playing time is they were going to do just X, Y, and Z. Well, sometimes X, Y, and Z isn't exactly what the play calls for. That is actually happening on the ice. And so again, putting kids in situations and allowing them to feel through and make mistakes and make reads that goes such a long way to the development of their hockey sense and hockey IQ. And if these kids want to achieve the next level of the game, whether that's A to AA, B to A, AA to AAA, junior hockey to college hockey, they have to be able to have a hockey sense and think the game. And so we're kneecapping and handicapping kids by structurizing it so fast and so young. And I even see it walking into the rinks, I'll walk into a mite practice and I'll see a drill where a coach is dumping the puck in, and then it's a 5-on-0 where all 5 players have to get to their spots and they're told where to go. And it's like, that's not hockey. That's not hockey. Like, put them in situations where they're going to read and react. And as they get older, you can start to implement a little bit more of the structure. And when you have a little bit more of the structure, you're probably going to win some more games. But at the end of the day, like, I'll go back to it now. And this kind of gets to what you were talking about. Like, and this is maybe for the parents first and foremost, like, don't judge your coach based on the wins and loss record. Judge your coach based on looking at the team at the beginning of the year and then looking at the team at the end of the year and seeing how much progress has been made for that. And that is how we should be judging youth coaches. The junior level, college level, the professional level, oh yeah, you're being judged on wins and losses. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. There's no doubt about it. At youth hockey, our job is to move kids along. And to be able to do that, you have to coach them in a way that allows for that gray area.
Right. I love that you said guidelines, not gospel, especially at the younger ages. Guys, like, I see this in the gym. This is like super, super obvious for kids that, like, if you have kids that have trained other places and then come to me a little bit later on in their training age or training career, and all they've done is lift for like 2 or 3 years, and they've done like no movement, like no sprinting, no agility. These kids come to me and it is a massive difference. Like, anyone who has no eye in the gym, not a strength coach, not a trainer, can walk in the room and be like, I bet those guys have trained longer than those guys. And it's so easy. Every group, doesn't matter the age, because if you jump to step 3 or 4 when they're supposed to be at step 1 or 2, which is teaching them the game, not turning them into robots, right? When they get older, they get to the midget level, and now they need to make a read on the ice on their own, not you go from point A to point B, a robot. You go and you come back in the zone, like Tope's talking here, and you go and stop in that area. And yes, obviously there's times when you're teaching them, this is about where you want to be, but that's a guideline versus a gospel. Like, when you make those super, super hard rules and things like that, and usually it's because you're trying to only win and not thinking about development, which wins come from development, right? Then you're helping your players down the road, not just are we winning today, right? And it's like that metaphor I'm using in the gym. It's the same thing. Oh, I want these kids to get way stronger, but they have no movement competency. It doesn't matter how strong you are if you can't move. You're in the wrong sport. You are a weightlifter trying to weightlift competitions. We use the gym to be better on the ice, not to only stay good in the gym. And it's the same thing here, like teaching them the guidelines. It's about development, not let's win at 9 years old. And that's all we care about, because then you are hampering development over the next few years. And like I said, like, we as coaches, Toph and I on the ice, me in the gym, I can see that clear as day when it's that opposite. And it's like, no, I played for a coach who like just wants to win today. I mean, I know coaches in St. Louis that have great win records when they're midget coaches. But then you look at how many of their players go from midgets and make junior teams and stick, or are successful in juniors or get to college. We had teams here that made it to the national championship. There's like 3 guys that stuck in juniors, 3 off of a team that lost in the national championship. To me, it's because they weren't developing in practice. They were playing to win. And it's pretty obvious. And it's like, I'd rather lose more games as a coach and have more of my players develop and move on.
Yeah. I mean, look, we had Rob Hudson on our podcast a few weeks ago. Rob Hudson has one kid, his oldest, that just signed with the Edmonton Oilers. He has another kid playing in Montreal that won the Calder Trophy as the best rookie in the NHL. He had one who took BU basically to the national championship and was one of the best players at World Juniors. And then he's got a fourth that's coming up. That's a pretty hell of a good hockey player too. And one of the lines that he said is like, if a kid on my team turns a puck over and we lose a national championship, whatever. He's like, doesn't matter. We clipped it. We put it out on social media like that. And like, what would you rather do as a coach? Yeah. And I'm talking at like the higher levels, right? Like, would you rather have a kid that like gets his college paid for because he's been developed and get that phone call from mom and dad and the kid saying, thank you for all you did for me? Or would you rather like, win a few more hockey games as a coach?
And that's not saying that when he was coaching that team, he wasn't trying to win. He's trying to win.
Yeah.
But he was also allowing for development and pushing development and things like that,
Yeah, 100%. And it's like, it's one of those things where it also, if all of your players get better, you think you're probably going to win more hockey games? Probably, And so again, if you do want to coach or judge a coach on their win-loss record, if you think that's more pertinent than how the team looks at the end of the year versus the first, then judge them on their win-loss record in February and March compared to what it was in September and October or October and November, and so like, I think that's the way that we should look at winning is like, if our players get better, we're probably going to win more hockey games. And that's where it goes to kind of like the ice time conundrum, let's call it. First of all, I want to say when it comes to ice time. So I had a team that won the Bantam National Championship in, 2000? So 25 years ago. Bench never got shortened. Everybody played the power play. Everybody played penalty kill. There was literally no first line, second line, third line. We were all equal. And obviously we had a lot of good players, which helps. And you look at like every game, a different line started. It's either one or the other or the other. And then you just kind of rolled through. Didn't matter what situation in the game. And I think because of that, we all got a lot better. And if you look at where we were at the beginning of the year versus where we were at the end of the year, it was completely different. And then you look at like Brett Beebe, who I think is one of the best youth coaches out there. He was one of the most downloaded podcasts that we've had. He's out in the LA area. He just had 4 kids that he coached in LA get drafted and in the NHL. And one of the things that he said as a midget coach is he's like, the way that I looked at ice time was everybody plays every situation until I think January. And then you like earn your spot as a role once you get to January. And then from January and February, it's kind of like, okay, now you've earned a role on the team. Now play this role to the best of your ability. And that doesn't mean the roles can change and you can't move up or down or whatever. But I always thought that was a pretty good way of looking at it when you get to like midget hockey. Everybody plays every situation. You have to earn it once you get to like the more important games at the end of the year when everybody wants to win.
Well, you think about it too, like, you're talking about your team that won the national championship. Anybody could have started. Anybody's playing anytime. And it's like, if you just ride out, you got one line of studs or something like that, and you got the teams who just double shift those kids so they win every game because of that one line. Well, like if they get to midgets or junior, there's going to be sooner or later where they're not the best players. It's going to happen. And by you not making them sit on the bench and wait till it's their line to go and things like that, when they get higher levels, and now they've got, there's so many guys that will go to juniors and they were the guy wherever they came from. They have been their whole life, and now they're on the fourth line. Now they're on the third line. You were one of those guys. I wasn't the guy my whole life, but I started to be right before juniors, and then I get to juniors and bang, fourth line the entire season.
Same here.
Healthy scratch. Yeah. And that was super hard for me, so it's like by doing these things and developing the whole team, you're also developing your best players to also be a team player and not make it all about them. And I just win games for this team. So you're also developing skills in those players to be a better teammate, or, hey, now we're going to be down in games because you can't go out there and score a goal every other shift. We're down. Now you need to learn to play from behind, and you're helping that player develop just like you're helping the other players develop in all these different ways. Again, we're teaching the kids to win, but in a way where the goal is we're trying to develop as many players as possible.
Yeah, it's like winning on the micro, right? Like every battle, every loose puck, doing the little things.
I love that. I think that makes way more sense. You're
Yeah.
teaching each player to win on the micro level in practice, every battle, in a race in practice, in games, every battle, off of a face-off. You really, if you're trying to win this way, you have to focus on everyone and every detail of the game to win, instead of just, letting little Johnny, who's by far the fastest player in the league, just skate around everybody and score goals, and that's why your team wins.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. Like, I had a coach once that was like so far, like it's kind of like process versus result kind of thing too, where it was like, I don't care if we win or lose this game. Like I want to, and it's kind of like, well, I want to win too, like, like, I don't like to hear that. Like, no, like let's win, so it's like, again, it's that dichotomy. It's that middle ground. And the other thing that I'll say too, Vex, is one of the best, we talk about like divvying up ice time. One of the best ways to develop players is creating competition and making them have to earn their spot. You know what I mean? And one of the things I did when I was a midget coach once, I did this for certain parts during the year, is there were 4 different power play units, and we were going in practice, and the team that scored the first goal on the power play was going out for a shift on the power play. And they had to, they had to earn it. So, and then like, and that's one of the things, like, so many times, and I've seen it so much in youth hockey, we just let our best players be, and we don't coach them hard. Why? Because we want them to feel good so we win more hockey games. You're not doing that kid a service by doing that. Like, if your best player is a bad teammate or your best player isn't working hard, like, sit him on the bench, and yeah, you lose or whatever. Like, and it goes to it, right? Like, we at Miami, this is college hockey, guys. This is Division I college hockey, one of the top programs in the country at the time. When I was coaching at Miami, at different times during the year, we were number 1 in the country. We won our CCHA championship. We played a game against Michigan State on a Friday and got absolutely thumped. And we had a lot of passengers in that game. Like, we had a lot of people who weren't working, weren't focused, weren't ready to go. And we legitimately, this is all credit to Rico Blasi, like, he sat a bunch of guys in the stands the next night, and we didn't even play with it. We had enough healthy guys to play with a full lineup, and we didn't play with a full lineup. And we went out and played Michigan State on Saturday night, and we absolutely thumped them. Why? Culture, development, accountability, and it led to a win. And then later on in the year, we played against Notre Dame at home. I'll never forget this. We played against Notre Dame at home on a Friday, got thumped, like, weren't ready to play. And it was like the whole team. So it's like, you couldn't sit guys, because you could have sat everybody. Saturday, typically we would have either a light pregame skate or not a pregame skate. And on Saturday, we had a battle practice at our pregame skate. And it was like, we had a battle practice because it's about the development of our players. It's about accountability. And yeah, did it maybe lead to maybe us not having favorable conditions to win the game that night? Because we're, beating each other up, 6-7 hours before the game. Yeah. But you know what happened? We had a great practice. Guys loved it. They knew they were held accountable that day. And guess what happened that night? We thumped Notre Dame and we won. So it's like, again, it's the focus on the culture, the development, the bigger picture versus winning a single hockey game. I've seen it like work at the college level, top Division I stuff. And then you think about youth hockey, like that's where the priorities have to lie.
Nobody does selling better than Shopify. Shopify is the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not-so-secret secret, with Shop Pay that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts go abandoned and way more sales going through. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. On the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more, sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout that Skims uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period for 3 months at shopify.com/Westwood1, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Westwood1 to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/Westwood1.
The secret is out. With millions of younger-looking customers across the country, Plexiderm is one of the most highly sought-after products on the market. It visibly shrinks under-eye bags and smooths out crow's feet in minutes, and the effects last up to 10 hours. Influencers love it, magazines feature it, and people just can't get enough of it. As a matter of fact, Elle Magazine gave it an Editor's Choice Award as Best Instant Wrinkle Filler for 2025. In as little as 10 minutes, Plexiderm reduces the appearance of fine lines, wrinkles, and those dreaded under-eye bags. So yes, you can look years younger in minutes, and the effects last for hours. No surgery, no gimmicks, just results. The best news, you can try Plexiderm for only $14.95. Plus, get free shipping. Don't wait. Order Plexiderm today. Visit plexiderm.com/special. That's plexiderm.com/special. Paid for by Sheer Science.
Your software needs to be compliant to win deals, but you also need your engineers focused on building your product, not pulling SOC 2 evidence. Enter a third option. Make Vanta your first security hire. Vanta uses AI and automation to get you compliant fast, simplify your audit process, and unblock deals, so you can prove to your customers that you take security seriously. Plus, Vanta scales right along with you, backed by support that's there when you need it every step of the way. That's why top startups like Cursor, Linear, and Replit use Vanta to get and stay secure. Don't SOC block your best engineer. Set them free and get compliant fast with Vanta. Get started at Vanta.com.
Man, I absolutely love it. And I want to go back to what you said about the power play. You 4 power plays in practice. Whoever scores first or whoever scores the fastest is going to go first in the next game. Think about that, coaches. Think about that. Think about the culture in that practice and how hard. We've all been on teams or in practices where the power play guys are just always the power play guys for the most part, no matter what. And sometimes middle of the season, older teams, obviously, they get a little bit lackadaisical, a little bit late. No, we're deciding on Thursday before Friday's game who's going on the power play by who plays the best today. What does that do for your practice?
Yeah, or through the whole week. You know,
yeah.
I mean, to be the last day. Yeah.
Unbelievable what that is going to do for the energy, the attention to detail, the camaraderie, the guys pushing each other. Then think about the celebration from the guys who score. They're like, yeah, we're getting on the PP first. Now you got the PK mad at the PP for selling. Now it's going to create a whole nother level of, okay, now the PK guys are going to level up because they don't want to get scored on, right? And so it's just going to create this perfect storm of development, which leads to winning more games.
We had Ryan Hardy, who's the assistant GM in Toronto right now. He was the GM of the Steel at the time. Remember, he came to our hockey think tank conference and he was unreal. He gave a presentation, and it's just like simple. Like, if our players get better, we're going to win more hockey games.
Toph and I have talked about it on the podcast quite a bit. It's probably been at least a year, but my first 2 years being retired, so like 19-20 hockey seasons, our first year we had a pretty good team. Our second year, I coached with Mike Barra, who I've talked a lot about on the podcast. Love the guy. I think he's amazing in youth hockey. He's in Nashville. And we came off the ice from our first practice of the year. I remember with a rink, we weren't at our normal rink. I remember walking back to the locker room, the door closing, and immediately I looked at Bears and I go, holy shit, buddy, we might not win a game this year. We might not win a game. And we decided, the 4 coaches that were in that room right there, okay, we're just going to focus on hardcore development because that's what we're going to need to do. Hopefully we'll win some games by the end of the year. We lost a whole bunch of games in the beginning of the year. I don't know. We might have won 1 out of our first 10. The end of the year, we were, tops ranked in the country. We had all the steam in the world going into regionals and nationals. And I think we were 11-0-1 in our last 12 games, rolling over teams. And it was literally because all we did was hammer development, both individual and team, the entire season. And by the end of the year, we were a wagon. And now we got a bunch of kids that are playing college hockey, Division I, Division III, tons of kids who play juniors. And it's literally because the development that we hammered home that year and the plan that and the kids bought into it and they believed in it. It was hard, guys, coaches. I'm not going to lie to you. It was hard those first 10 games, but our messaging every single time was like, yes, we are playing to win, guys, but we care way more about winning at the end of the year than we do at the beginning of the year. If we do this work, believe in us, believe in yourselves, believe in what we're doing here. If we go at this 100, the results of the games don't matter in the beginning of the year. We care about what they'll be in the end of the year. And look it up. You look it up, look back to that year, what we did, and it's so obvious. Very, very cool.
Yeah, and I think that, well, let me ask you this, and we've been talking about this for almost a half an hour now. We got 5 other things to talk about, but this is important question, I think. So I know even myself as a youth coach at the midget level before have been apprehensive about doing it that way for fear of what the parents are going to say if you lose. I know that there's a lot of youth coaches out there that would rather coach a certain way, but feel like they have to do it a different way so they win more, so the parents won't get upset with them and they won't have to deal with that. Because, you put the brass tacks on it, it's a lot easier to judge people with black and white data. And the easiest black and white data in sports is wins and losses. And so how did your coaching staff go about, speaking to the kids, speaking to the message? Were you very upfront at the beginning of the year about this is how we're going to, this is how we're going to run things. This is how you should judge us by, because I do think that that's a really important question for both parents and coaches in today's day and age of how people use my hockey rankings, for inflating their egos. So what would you say to that? What did you guys do? How should coaches and parents kind of look at that?
Like Topher and I always talk about, get in front of it. I don't think that we knew how bad we were to start the year until the first practice happened. So I honestly can't remember if we had that meeting with the parents. I'm sure that we talked about the goal is development. I know we did that. Yeah. But I don't think we knew or anybody knew how bad we were going to be till after that first practice. And I do remember parents being like, oh my God, it's going to be a long year. And us then being like, hey, trust us, trust the process. Also, something that Bears did is he had, I believe he had quarterly meetings. He'd be at the rink until 10:30, 11 at night. And he's a savage. Like I said, he's one of the best in youth hockey. I'll stake my reputation on that, where he would have meetings with the parents and the players quarterly. And the parents could ask anything, total open line of community, ask anything in front of your player can ask me, we'll talk about everything right now. And he did that 4 times throughout the year, which again, just very open and say, this is where we're at right now. This is where we want him to be. These are who's talking to him. These are who's asking about him. These are the teams I've emailed about your son. Cause obviously at the U16 level, that stuff's important. So the lines of communication were very, very open. And I think that made a big deal. I also think me being only 1 year freshly removed from playing pro hockey and having a pretty good career, a lot of people had a lot of faith in me being trust this process. I was able to say, guys, trust this. When you focus on details like this in practice every day, all these little details, not the macro only, micro and macro, promise you, we're going to get these guys better and they're going to win more games and have more scouts come to the games at the end of the year. And I think that the parents believed us.
Huge, man. Just getting that buy-in for that. So we beat this one pretty good. But it's I think it's a really relevant conversation. And I think that really helps. Okay. So question number 2, you ready to go?
Let's get it.
All right, here we go. So question number 2 is, we talk about this a lot. It's kind of like the professional, let's call it AAA model versus the community model. And we talk a lot about Minnesota, and we talk about the value of the community model, and particularly how it keeps the ice costs down due to public rinks. It keeps the cost down in so many other different capacities as well. Just with and when you have that, you have more people that are coming into it, right? There's a more community civic pride. You're playing for something bigger than yourself. We've done full podcast episodes on the community model. And then you have the AAA model, right? Which is, you get the best players together and play best on best competition. At least that's the spirit of the thing, as Dickie Dunn from Slapshot would have said. And so, there's, again, this, we get a lot of, questions from people, sometimes even from Minnesota, that's like, well, it's not just totally this. And you get questions from like the AAA models. Well, it's not totally this. And so I think, like, again, there is value, guys. There is a lot of value in the community model, and you see it in the numbers of players, in growth and retention in those areas. You see it also from the amount of elite hockey players in those areas, particularly Minnesota we're talking about. But again, there's also value in best on best competition, being able to practice with and practice against, high level hockey players, and maybe not being the best on the team and having to be challenged. Right. So like, there's a balance. And this is one of the things about Minnesota that I think they do better than everybody else. And that is the fall and winter season is community hockey. And then in the spring, it's best on best, but it's very structured. It's methodical. And Mike McMillan, who we actually were going to get on at one point, but he couldn't make it. We're going to have to get him on because he runs kind of like, they call it the high performance route, as you get to the older ages, Bantam midget hockey. And so they strike a really good balance of community and then finding opportunities and avenues for best on best. Like even during the fall season, they have their high school season in the winter, and they have, for the oldest ages, they have what's called the Midwest Elite League. And that's where you take players from different regions around the state, and it's a tryout to make the team. And then they have these little showcases around Minnesota where it's playing best on best. And so I think that we talk about Minnesota a lot. We talk about the community model, and it's really not just community. There is an avenue for the best on best too, right? So like, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, because again, like there's a happy medium here, and there's two ways of looking at things. You're not completely right or completely wrong looking at it either way. And so thoughts, Jeffrey?
I love it. I mean, for me, that's a no-brainer. And I think it's a no-brainer for multiple reasons. I think that it saves people money, where that they don't have to be going out of town every single freaking weekend. And saving money is nice, but also like if you save that money then, and it makes sense, and everybody's playing the community games and things like that, it allows a lot of families to have a little bit more money for their kids' hockey, where they can get a quality strength coach, or some meetings with a nutritionist, or a sports psychologist, or a skills coach, things like that are going to be like very individualized development. So for those players who really are trying to get better by saving some money in the year, not saying, oh, if I save 10,000, I'm going to go out and spend 10,000. No, but you might be able to spend 1,000 or 2,000, where you can work with all these people that will help your kid for the rest of the season, and you still saved 8,000 on not going on all these trips and all this and that, and whatever the numbers are, right? But like, so just from that little standpoint, that could be massive for so many players, because at the younger ages, obviously you got to play games and all these things, but like the things that will really move the needle for younger players are individual skill work, things that they need to personally work on in their game, whether that's their skating or their shooting, mechanics, whatever it may be. Also learning to eat right. Guys, might not seem like a big deal. When players get to teenage years and they're eating 5 times a day, if they're eating crap 5 times a day versus somebody who's eating well and understands how to eat well, not only are we making them a healthier human for the rest of their life, all right, their brain works better. They can learn things better. There's less inflammation in their body. They're not going to be sick. Like all of these things that are going to wind up having a pretty massively profound impact over the next 10 years of their hockey career and their life. So like, I know that's kind of out of context with the community and the higher level, but like, there's so many reasons why that works a lot better.
Well, it's investing your, like you talk about, some parents look at their kids and how much money they're paying, and you thought as an investment. Where's your money better spent on doing spending $1,500 to go to an away tournament where your kid's going to play 4 or 5 games, or taking that $1,500 and using it for a nutritionist where your kid is going to eat better? Like what's the better ROI there, guys? Like
it's not even close, guys. It's not even close. Even if you can only hire a nutritionist for 2 months, if your player actually listens and goes and buys in, and you as the parent go to those meetings too and learn so that you can cook better meals for them and things like that, I can't even explain to you what a massive difference that will make in your kid's career. Like massive. But to get back to the community, the hockey part of it too, like I love it. I love it. Like St. Louis, I get crapped on Twitter, and also, loved on Twitter every year that I post something about why don't we do what Minnesota does, where we pause the AAA season and the kids here can play high school. Then we resume the AAA season at the end and go into regionals and nationals. Like everybody wins, everybody saves money. The local hockey's better. To me, it just makes sense.
Well, so here's a couple things, because I hear a lot, and I think, again, it's not a black and white answer, but I hear a lot from people around the country that are not in Minnesota being like, well, Minnesota can't work here. It's Minnesota. They have publicly funded rinks. They have more kids at their disposal. And it's kind of like the chicken or the egg. Well, why do they have more kids at their disposal? Because it's a lot more accessible, because it's cheaper, right? But it's like, and there is some truth to, you can't completely carbon copy Minnesota and put that model in other places around, and it's going to work exactly like it should. But I have a couple different case studies that I think people should be aware of, that I think can give you some perspective on how, if you shift a little bit more towards that way, like again, in Michigan, in, out east in Chicago, we have Mite AAA. Like that's extreme. It's just ridiculous, right? So here are a couple different things. The first one that I want to talk about, and I'm actually doing some research right now to make sure we can get somebody from this area on the podcast to actually explain it. But I went up to speak at Minnesota Hockey's big leadership conference about 2 months ago. And from there, I've had different conversations from people that I met about kind of like what's going on in Minnesota. And I'm very obviously curious and interested into the inner workings of how these organizations are running things. And as I'm talking to some of these hockey directors and presidents, it was really interesting to hear how many of them brought up East Grand Forks. Okay. So East Grand Forks, a small town in Minnesota, and they were an OK program, and they ended up putting together this pilot program where at the squirt level, they basically said, we're not doing any travel hockey until January. So we're going to play everything in-house. So we're going to split the teams up evenly. We're going to play against each other. I don't know how many teams they had. Again, I have to do more research on this, but it was almost like in-house until January. It's almost like a tryout, right? Like and then in January, we're going to separate the talent levels, and we're going to have different teams that are going to go and then play travel, right? And so what ended up happening is East Grand Forks went from an okay high school hockey program and program in general to winning the high school state championship years later.
Weird.
Right? So like, very interesting case study. And as I'm talking to all of these people from Minnesota, it was incredible to hear how many of them were now starting to adopt the East Grand Forks model at different levels within their program. And so it's just, and you think about these different, I think about Chicago. If you have at least 4 teams, so if you have like Mite 1, 2, 3, and 4, or if you have like Squirt 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you can probably even do this with 3 teams, why can't you do this model? Why not?
I mean,
saves on costs, builds camaraderie within the program. It's great for player development. Remember, we had Paul Caulfield, guys. So Paul Caulfield, who's Cole Caulfield's dad, knows a thing or two, about developing players, coached his kid and his other kid all the way up through. And what they did is they took a pause during the season, and same thing. They told everybody, you're not traveling. We're going to do an in-house kind of, I think it was 3 to 4 week little little tournament where we're going to split up the teams evenly at every age group. So the A players are going to be on the same team at the C players, and we're going to split it up, and we're just doing in-house. And he said what that did for development, and he detailed it. Go back and listen to that episode. He talks about how it was really good for the C players because now all of a sudden they had to be a little bit faster. They had to think a little bit faster. They had to skate a little bit faster. They were pushed outside their comfort zone. It was also really good for the A players because now they had a little bit more time and space with the puck. They had to learn how to be a little bit more creative. They were different problems that they had to solve on the ice. And so, yes, 100% is doing best on best and challenging yourself going to be good for development? Yeah, it is. But also look at this too. It doesn't have to be that way all the time. And so just really, really interesting stuff. And then the other thing that I'll say, as you mentioned, the St. Louis hockey and kind of like the pre-post split season kind of thing. So when I was in upstate New York, this was right after I was done coaching at Cornell. I got together with Chris Collins, and Chris Collins, awesome hockey guy. He was trying to build hockey in Rochester at the time. And so one of the things that we did, we had a 15U team and a 16U team. And the way that we structured our program was we were going to go hard AAA from the end of August until the high school season started. And then when the high school season starts, we're going to have 2 paths for our players. We're going to have, if you want to go play high school hockey, go ahead, go play high school hockey. If not, we're not doing team practices. We're going to do small group training. So some kids wanted to play high school. Some kids didn't want to play high school or didn't have a high school to play for. That was going to benefit them. And so we had some go one way. We had some go the other way. And I think depending on the kid, it was the right or wrong decision based on which way they went. But the really, really interesting part is that the 2 players that have made it the furthest from our 16 team, which route do you think that they went? As juniors in high school, and New York high school hockey is nowhere near the level of play of Minnesota high school hockey. Where the 2 that have made it the furthest, which route do you think they took?
I'm guessing high school, since
I kind of teed that up for you. But like they went high school, right? So I look at Hunter McDonald, who played for his high schools. The first time he ever had the opportunity or option to play high school hockey, and he's a junior, right? And the hockey comparatively is not. It's not even close. It's not even close to AAA, and it's not even close to even Minnesota high school hockey. But he was the man. He's a defenseman. He got to run the power play and get all his confidence from, being the man on the team. And then Zach Bookman, same thing. He is one of the best defensemen in Hockey East. He's been to NHL development camps. He's going to be a senior. Actually, he's just transferred to Western Michigan. So he's going to Western from Merrimack. And he's going to be a great defenseman there and potentially sign an NHL contract. I've had NHL guys reach out to me about Bookie because they know that I coached him in youth hockey, asking him about him. And like he played high school hockey. And so it's just like, it doesn't, that's where the gray area is, right? That's where like, it doesn't have to be so specifically one or the other. And we're not saying you have to do one or you have to do the other. We're just trying to provide a lot of perspective here, guys, to help you think about how to structure, the hockey with the region and the area that you're at. And so I think, again, it's a really good back and forth because there's pros and cons to everything. Like if you're just community and you just play house league and that's it, that's not what we're talking about here. That's not what Minnesota is. If you're full on AAA and you don't allow any wiggle room for anything else and you start, at the youngest of ages, then you're going to be spending $200,000 on your kids' youth hockey career in their youth hockey journey. And there's not very many people that can afford that or want to do that. So again, providing information here to look at the nuances, I think can go a long way to helping people structure how they think about it and structure how they actually put their hockey programming together.
100%. And, I talked about one guy 2 or 3 episodes ago that I've trained since he was 9 years old. And he ripped up the USHL last year, and he's going to Dartmouth next year. Multiple sport athlete, and he would miss practices. He was in 04, so he would have been it would have been U15 or U14 AAA team. And there were practices that he would have to miss to play soccer during the year. There were a lot of practices where he would show up 10 minutes late because he was coming right from soccer. Did the coach who he was coaching for love that? No, but he allowed him to do it. And, I was talking to this player Monday in the gym, and I was like, hey, man, I talked about you on my podcast last week or the week before, talking about how much easier you pick up new things in the gym that have to deal with like just overall athleticism. And I was like, it's 100% because you play baseball and soccer. And like that's why he's able to move the way he does on the ice. Like he moves in like a way different way than other players. And he's very shifty and has great control of his body. And he always plays with his eyes up, and he did from a young age. And so like, there's kind of like a compromise, right? Like a lot of coaches won't let players play other sports in season. They won't ever let them miss a practice. To me, that's short-sighted. Again, you can't have a guy who misses 90% of your practices because he's playing another sport at the 15 AAA level, I don't think. But if you can allow these things to happen, again, what's best for that individual's overall development? And obviously it paid off here.
Yeah, 100%. We'll get into multiple sports a little bit later because that's another big topic. But again, like I think this is great conversation to kind of look at the entirety of this, I don't know, is it debate, whatever you want to call it. So hopefully we've provided that perspective. Ready to move on to the next topic?
Yes.
He's nodding. It's like, okay, good.
Nobody does selling better than Shopify. Shopify is the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not so secret with Shop Pay that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts go abandoned and way more sales going through. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. On the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more, sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout that Skims uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period for 3 months at shopify.com/Westwood1, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Westwood1 to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/Westwood1.
The secret is out. With millions of younger-looking customers across the country, Plexiderm is one of the most highly sought-after products on the market. It visibly shrinks under eye bags and smooths out crow's feet in minutes, and the effects last up to 10 hours. Influencers love it, magazines feature it, and people just can't get enough of it. As a matter of fact, Elle Magazine gave it an Editor's Choice Award as Best Instant Wrinkle Filler for 2025. In as little as 10 minutes, Plexiderm reduces the appearance of fine lines, wrinkles, and those dreaded under-eye bags. So yes, you can look years younger in minutes, and the effects last for hours. No surgery, no gimmicks, just results. The best news, you can try Plexiderm for only $14.95. Plus, get free shipping. Don't wait. Order Plexiderm today. Visit plexiderm.com/special. That's plexiderm.com/special. Paid for by Sheer Science.
Your software needs to be compliant to win deals, but you also need your engineers focused on building your product, not pulling SOC 2 evidence. Enter a third option. Make Vanta your first security hire. Vanta uses AI and automation to get you compliant fast, simplify your audit process, and unblock deals so you can prove to your customers that you take security seriously. Plus, Vanta scales right along with you, backed by support that's there when you need it every step of the way. That's why top startups like Cursor, Linear, and Replit use Vanta to get and stay secure. Don't SOC block your best engineer. Set them free and get compliant fast with Vanta. Get started at Vanta.com.
Okay. The next one I want to talk about is how much structure as a coach, and we talked a little bit about this in the winning versus the development, but like how much structure versus letting them play. So there's completely on the one side where it's like robots, when the puck is here, you have to be here. When the puck is here, you have to be here type of thing. And then there's the other side where it's like, I'm just not going to coach. We're just going to let them go. Like whatever they want to do, go ahead. What was that line of Jerry Maguire? I'm not going to do what you all think I'm going to do and freak out.
So good. I'm taking this. Did he take the fish with him or something?
Who's coming with me and Flipper here? So like, what are your thoughts on providing structure, predictability in your coaching as you're developing players versus letting them play? Go.
I will say, like I always do,
age appropriately.
I would much rather err on the side of less structure than more structure at the youngest ages.
And the youngest ages. Thank you very much.
The whole purpose of this is there's no black and white. So yes, teaching them, where do you guys think you should be when the puck is over here to be in a good defensive position? Like those types of things. And yes, teaching them a little bit of structure, but more teaching them to think like Tope said, you dump the puck in, everybody's sprinting and stopping at their defensive position. Like, okay, maybe every once in a while like that makes sense, but I think it makes way more sense to run that drill in a smarter way and have them all starting in different places or starting off of a scramble so that they're going to have to talk to each other. Now, if you're working with 6-year-olds, they're not going to get that. It has to be age appropriate and stratified out by level and ability to understand the game. But if you teach them less structure and more creativity and talking to each other and learning and teaching them how to read the game and make reads in real time, yes, they're going to make more mistakes when they're younger, but when they're older, they will have already understood how to process these things, and it will be way easier for them to do that at a faster pace and at a higher level. Also, it's very easy to turn players into robots when they're older if it's needed. Yeah. You can't literally, guys, please hear this. You can't do it the other way. It is very hard to turn someone from a robot into somebody who can read, react, think the game. It is very hard. Very, 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 very hard. So like I would way rather err on the side of reading, learning the game, talking to each other, things out, letting those mistakes happen, and then using those as teachable moments through video and stopping practice. Yes, oh my God, he blew the whistle and stopped practice. We don't have to skate the entire hour. We can actually coach things. Yes, that is okay versus turning them into robots.
Yeah. So I love everything that you said, and I'll pose a question. When you're developing anything, right? Like math skills, playing the piano, whatever it may be, is a kid going to learn more when you give them the answers to the test every time, or is a kid going to learn more when they have to figure it out and do a little bit of work? And they're obviously going to retain the information. They're going to learn more when they have to work a little bit harder to figure it out and put some effort into it. And so I think it's very similar in hockey. And it's funny, like as you were talking, one of the things that was popping up in my head is obviously Barry Smith is a mentor of mine. We've had him on the podcast and I've been on the ice with him. Barry's a 7-time Stanley Cup winning coach that does a lot in youth hockey right now. And he starts every drill with a race or a battle because it creates unpredictability. And he starts every drill with, if it's not a race and a battle, it's with what he calls a swirl. So let's say you're doing a forecheck drill, or let's say you're doing a back check, or like a return to D zone drill. The first whistle, there's going to be all the players and they're going to skate in a circle. He calls it a swirl. They're going to skate in a little tiny circle, just like kind of right around each other. And then the second whistle is now everybody has to go figure out where to go. There's not a designated F1, F2, F3 on the forecheck. Again, it creates unpredictability. And again, if you don't do that and you just dump a puck in, the players are going to talk before, hey, I'll be F1, you be F2, or I'll play center, you play this. And they're not going to learn that. You have to learn, like you said, to read and react. So creating that unpredictability in those situations in practice is going to help them to retain that information and figure things out. And that's where, like, again, it's age appropriate. So every level you go up, or I shouldn't say every level that you go up, but every age that you get older, you can start to introduce maybe a little bit more predictability. You can start to introduce a little bit more structure, but keeping the structure at a minimum, and then letting the players figure it out, right? Like, hey, in the D zone, we want to make sure we get, one person on the puck and one person in front. And then we want, our two high players to be in the points. Like, that's as simple as it has to be, probably until Bantam hockey, maybe even midget hockey, and then when you start D zone drills, you start where everybody's doing a swirl, and then you give the offensive players the puck, and then they got to talk it out and figure it out. And why is that? Because the games, again, we want to develop players as you get higher and higher level. It's more positionless hockey. And so you're going to have to be able to play different positions. You're going to have to be able to play up high in the D zone and play down low in the D zone. You're going to have to be in the offensive zone, up high in high ice as a forward, and as a defenseman, you're going to have to understand how to play below the tops of the circles too, because of all the mixing and matching and role replacement that goes on in the offensive zone. And so I love what you said there, and finding a way to make it a little bit less predictable in practices, especially where they're going to have to figure it out. They're going to have to talk. They're going to have to sort it out. They're going to have to problem solve, where we're not giving them the answers to the test. They're having to figure it out, especially when it comes from a team standpoint. And now they have to figure it out with their teammates on the fly in pressure situations. Man, you're just developing hockey players through that.
Well, let me ask you this, because we've all been there as coaches of anything, doesn't matter what it is, where the answer and you're seeing it and you're like, I just want to do it for you. I just want to give it to you. Like you said, are you going to give your kid the answers to the test? That doesn't help them learn. Do you have any advice for coaches with this process
when they're coaching?
Yeah. You see something, take a pause, take a few breaths. Is there anything that
ask questions? Ask questions, lead them to the answer.
Player's question.
Ask the player question. What did you see here? Because honestly, sometimes as a coach, you're wrong. What did you see with that read? Oh, and then the player gives you their answer. Oh, okay. I see. Oh yeah, that actually makes sense. Okay. But then also, like, if there's a moment for constructive criticism and you want to teach, hey, what did you see here? Hey, if you were to make another decision, what's a different decision that you would make? And a lot of times they'll give you the right answer, and if they can't give it to you and you're in a group setting, maybe ask another player. Oh, okay, there we go. Or, if you're doing it one-on-one, then, you can guide them. If they're really not getting it, then you can give them the answer. But I think asking questions as a coach to see where their point of view is coming from the decision that they made or didn't make, that goes a long way to helping them. And then also, they feel a little bit more ownership. If they were the one that provided the answer, that makes them feel good, gives them some agency to what they're doing as opposed to being told what to do. So that would be one thing I would say, ask questions.
I love that.
So, but yeah, I think, and again, it goes to it. If you don't coach at all,
now you're doing nothing. Better.
Yeah.
Now you're doing nothing. PPOP.
Do less. Wait, can't do that less. Oh God, I love it. But yeah, like you said, we've gone to a little bit too much of robot coaching, remote control coaching, telling players exactly what they need to be doing all the time, when the best thing that we can do as coaches is put them in situations and environments in practice that they're going to see during the games and let them figure it out, let them talk it out. And again, this is why you don't judge coaches on wins and losses. You judge coaches by where you are at the beginning of the year versus where you are at the end of the year, because the beginning of the year is going to look messy. Good coaches, the beginning of the year looks messy. Because they're challenging the kids. They're pushing them outside their comfort zone. They're making them solve these problems. And eventually they'll learn how to do it. And imagine how much better the kids are going to be when that happens at the end of the year. So
weird.
Another plug for that. Okay, good stuff. Next one, it kind of goes to coaching. And that is what I'll call hard coaching versus soft coaching. There's on one extreme, the authoritarian a-hole, my way or the highway. I'm all discipline, that kind of thing. And then on the other side, there's, we're going to let them figure it out. And we don't want to, make them mad. We want everybody to be happy all the time. And all we're going to do is have some fun. Yeah. So talk a little bit about that.
I mean, again,
I don't know how to say
that. Age appropriate, again, finding the balance. I don't know. For me, it's one of those things that I think the more that you put yourself in leadership positions just throughout your life, the easier it is to have your finger on the pulse of when you need to be what guy, when you need to wear what hat. I would also say that
it's a great point.
Thank you very much. Only kind I make. I would also like to say that if you're not the only coach, it's also something where you as coaches should be talking about that. I mean, I really do think that there's a traditional, not that the head coach is bad cop, but I think that it's pretty easy to put the assistant coach in the good cop role, the buddy role, there to pick them up, there to give you the pat on the butt, there to be a little bit more micro while the head coach could be more macro. But I think that dichotomy has worked well for years where, forever, where the head coach can be a little bit more strict and because he's got to worry about everybody while the assistant coach can kind of be always the buddy. I think that just talking with your staff and how are we going to approach today? Like maybe you had a bad law. It wasn't because, it was because of effort. So that's something where you want to nip that in the bud right away. And so it's like, okay, like you be good cop and I'm going to be more of the quote unquote bad cop today type of thing. But I think the biggest thing is you just have to learn through situations of you doing it over and over, when to do what and when to be what the team needs from you as the captain of the ship, the leader.
Yeah. Yeah. I would encourage everybody to think about this. So I think the number one job of a coach is to create the standard and then relentlessly hold people accountable to that standard in their own authentic way. So that takes a mix of kind of the old school and the new school, the old school in the sense of, hey, like this is the standard. And if you don't meet this standard, you're going to hear from me, like I'm going to set the standard very high and there's going to be accountability every time. If you can, as the coach, when that standard isn't met, whether that's an effort standard, whether that's a being a good teammate standard, whatever it is as it relates to your team. And the way that coaches hold people accountable should be authentically to them. I think, the way that we were held accountable was to be screamed and yelled at back when we were growing up. I don't think that necessarily works nowadays. I think a great way to hold people accountable now is certainly ice time. You're not meeting these standards. You're going to sit for a period. You're late. I'm sorry. Yep. You're sitting for a period. You weren't a great teammate. You were bullying. You're sitting for 2 games. That's the only thing really you can control as a coach. But just like there's a million different ways to hold people accountable and do the thing that's most applicable to kind of like who you are and what your personality is, but you have to be, the most important thing is you have to be consistent and it has to be equal and fair for everybody. If you have standards, they got to be the same for everybody. I don't care if little Johnny scores 100 goals or little Johnny scores 2 goals. You're not doing little Johnny any good if you're not holding 100 goal one, accountable to the standards that you set for the team. And so that's the way that I like to think about it. Like, I think kids need a little bit more old school nowadays, you talk about like the wussification of sports a lot. It's because we're not holding kids accountable to the high standards of being a good teammate and effort and the things that matter when you get older in life. And hockey's not even a part of the equation anymore. But you can't be so much where you're mentally abusing kids like we were when we were growing up.
Yeah. I mean, I was asked by coaches to fight players for being early to practice. Early, not late. Oh, he wasn't early enough. Take care of it. At 18. And I'm tough. I wasn't a good fighter, but I would do it. And it's like, dude, what does that do to me too? What does that do to that guy? What does that do to me? And that wasn't one time. That was multiple times. I think that's too far. But at the same token, I mean, the most important thing that Toph is saying here, and you can't hold kids accountable unless they know what the standard is. 100%. You have to set a standard, and then you have to let everyone know this is the standard for our team. Whether you score 100 goals or you score 1 goal, we go together as a unit, as a team, and everyone has to uphold these standards. If you get sat, you know the standard. It's not because I'm mad at you. It's not because I don't like you. It's not because I'm playing mind games with you. It's because of this. And then tell your player what they did wrong or didn't do up to the standard. Let them know, hey, this is the standard. This is going to make you hold yourself accountable from now on. And hopefully you never make this mistake again in the rest of your life, because you know that what the standard is and you're going to hit it for every time from now on, versus just not playing that player for a period. Because then he's in his own head thinking so for me, again, if the goal is development, if the goal is winning, if the goal is to move players on, whatever the goal is, you not telling the player why they're being sat or why they're being scratched, that doesn't help them anywhere near as much as if you tell them why. I'm not saying baby them, not saying coddle them, but tell them why, communicate with them. But step one that happens way before that is in the beginning of the year. These are our standards. These are what we're going to hold everyone accountable to. And, I got guys in the NHL who some of the stars on their teams aren't being held accountable. And they tell me what it does to the locker room, even in the NHL. And they're like, yeah, well, that guy just kind of does his own thing. And everybody else is like, what the F? You know what I mean? And so it doesn't work. Hold everyone accountable, because also talking about if one of your best players, and a lot of youth coaches will let their best player get away with breaking team rules and things like that so that they win more games, you're hurting that player later on in life and later on in their hockey career.
And also you're not going to win more games.
Right. In the end, you're not going to. Yeah. Right. And they're going to cheat because they got away with it. Right. You give a mouse a cookie, or give him, he's going to ask for a glass of milk, whatever the hell that thing is. You know what I mean?
That's a children's book that you've probably read, Sophie.
Yeah. Kid can't even read, but I do the picture books. But you're also hurting that player's development by not holding them accountable. And I have seen that many times throughout my own career. When I was younger, players that were better than me that weren't held accountable. So then they slacked off in a bunch of different areas in their life. And it hurt their career 5-10 years down the road.
Yeah. And the why that you say is really important, because you ask any high level hockey player what they want from their coach and they want to be told the truth. It's like, I just want to know where I stand, and you think about when players talk about coaches that they had that they really loved, those are pretty consistent answers. It's like, I always knew where I stood, and so that's where, and I think that's great conversation when you do need to hold a player accountable to a standard that they're not hitting. It's, hey, you tell me what's the standard, and why am I sitting you out right now? And have a conversation about it and make sure that they know exactly what it is. That is the debrief, let's call it. The debrief is because if you sit a kid and they don't know why, that, as you said, that is a mind game that we've all been there. It's mental abuse, man. It's not a fun place to be mentally and emotionally, when you don't know why and you don't know where you stand with your coaches when you're being held accountable, especially if other people on your team aren't being held accountable to those same standards. That's a really hard place to be as a player, whether you're 8 or 28 playing in the NHL. It's a really hard place to be. And so, I think, that old school of accountability mixed with the new school of the why, I think the coaches that are the best find that balance of those two. Hard. And when I say hard, I don't mean screaming. When I say hard, it's relentlessly holding people to the standards that you're setting and holding them accountable to that. And the new, which is the debrief. It's the communication. It's the why. And not just pointing out the bad things that they're doing, but, oh, by the way, it's also pointing out the good things that they're doing too, and finding that balance. So the best coaches that I've had have been really good at both, whether it was 25 years ago or whether it's today. It's that blend of the two. Makes sense?
100%. Yeah, 100%. Love that.
Okay. Well, we've been over an hour here. So this is, I think, going to end up being a part 1, part 2 conversation where we have some other things that we want to get to. But also, I would say maybe this is a blessing in disguise, because we want to know from you too. reach out to us. Like, what are some of these debates that you're having in your head as a hockey coach, as a hockey parent, that you would like us to talk about in this way, where, you know, there's an X and there's a Y, and we got to figure out a way to kind of meet in the middle or find some area in between. That's the sweet spot. And we would love to hear for the next time we do this. And the next time, the ones that I have on here is, let's see here. We got specialization versus multiple sports. We have game counts, you know, the amount of practices versus the amount of games. We have parent coaches versus regular coaches, but we want to hear from you guys too. Like, what are some things that you want us to bat around? So I think we're good to leave it here for now. Vex, what do you think?
This is a great combo. I love this.
Yeah. So hopefully this can provide you guys some perspective that can help you in whatever capacity you're in this great game with. And hey guys, have a great week.
Your software needs to be compliant to win deals, but you also need your engineers focused on building your product, not pulling SOC 2 evidence. Enter a third option. Make Vanta your first security hire. Vanta uses AI and automation to get you compliant fast, simplify your audit process, and unblock deals, so you can prove to your customers that you take security seriously. Plus, Vanta scales right along with you, backed by support that's there when you need it every step of the way. That's why top startups like Cursor, Linear, and Replit use Vanta to get and stay secure. Don't SOC block your best engineer. Set them free and get compliant fast with Vanta. Get started at Vanta.com.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.